Nigeria's COVID-19 tally stands at 48,116 as NCDC confirms 373 new cases. Ebonyi plans for takeoff of community policing. In international news, Scotland schools reopen after 4 months long shutdown. And in sport, Westerhoff defeats Biafra in court over match-fixing allegations.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. 373 new cases of COVID-19 confirmed on Thursday by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control has pushed up the country's toll past 48,000. 6 new deaths were also recorded. Lagos has an unusually low record at 69, even though it's still held the highest number, followed by 41 new cases confirmed in Osun. Kaduna and Oyo each reported 40 new cases. Although Nigerians may feel like rejoicing that the number of new cases are getting lower, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control says there is no reason for celebration yet because the low number of cases is a result of low sample collection across the states. NCDC Head of Surveillance and Epidemiology, Elsie Ilori, gave this assessment on Thursday during the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 daily briefing. She said testing labs are underutilized because the states have not been collecting enough samples for the labs to test. She said NCDC is working with the states to address the problem. Ebonyi State has begun preparations to kickstart community policing in the state. Governor David Umahi inaugurated on Thursday monarchs and heads of security agencies that were appointed as members of Ebonyi State Community Policing Advisory Committee and Ebonyi State Community Policing Committee to plan the launching of the program. Umahi said plans to review the zone's community policing security outfits had been completed by Southeast governors and it will soon begin policing in this zone. Still on security matters, the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, is threatened to form a security outfit in predominantly Fulani areas of the north. IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu said in a statement the Miyetti security outfit would be expelled from the southeast. Kanu said any Miyetti security outfit in the southeast would be considered hostile and occupying force and that the group would take appropriate measures to rid the region of such a force. Kanu predicated the threat to form an IPOB counter-security outfit in the north on whether the federal government assists or enables Miyetti Allah to set up its security outfit in the southeast. In entertainment news, he won't be the first one, but the Oni of Ife has joined his voice with those calling for the scrapping of Big Brother Nigeria television reality show. The monarch says the show should be taken off the air because its quote misrepresents Nigerian youths, end quote. Obade Yogunwusi made the recommendation while hosting members of the National Youth Council of Nigeria in its palace in Ile-Ife on Wednesday on the occasion of the International Youth Day. He called for the production of a new, more beneficial reality television program that would be more realistic about the Nigerian youth than what BB Niger portrays. The Oni said, quote, "Let's wear our thinking caps and begin to act like the real future leaders that we are," end quote. He compared figures between the 27 million votes cast by Nigerians during the last general election against the more than 170 million votes during last year's BB Niger reality show. He said this misrepresents the goodness and integrity of the Nigerian youths. So much has been blamed on COVID-19 pandemic, including soaring unemployment that is no solace to those without jobs. For some, the situation has spurred entrepreneurial ideas to beat joblessness. Correspondent Kelechi Mekalam tells the story of Favor Oluma.
Favor Oluma starts out her day sourcing and gathering materials for her work. It's her newly found passion. She combines discarded vehicle tires with other materials including wood, ropes and foam. She makes 1700s Ottoman-inspired furniture ranging from chairs to center tables and wall arts. Favor was motivated to rise above the unemployment problem brought about by COVID-19. And she wasn't worried about the challenges that would come with being in a trade largely dominated by men.
The first time when I started, so many people were telling me, like when I went to cut the wood, the plywood, the man there was telling me that he's not sure I can do this thing. I told him that, Oga, I can do it. A lot of people have been telling me that it's not something I can do. But I say I will do it, and I've been doing it so far.
Being a university student, Favor has had to spend nearly 5 months at home due to the closure of learning institutions. But they've been very productive months. Her furniture and artworks sell for an average $80, and her works have even earned her commendation from US rap artist Meek Mill. Despite the challenges that come with the 3-month-old business, Favor is training others in the trade.
Changes so far, I don't have a workshop, so sometimes it's inconvenient in my house and where I work, because I also work in a restaurant, so sometimes I take my work there to the storeroom to work there, and it's very inconvenient there. My future plans, I would like to get a very big workshop, like a workshop, and then I would like to empower the youths.
I'm so happy for learning it because it will help me for future. Like, I just started new, but as time goes on, I still have some experience of it. Like, I'm putting focus on it.
The unemployment rate in Nigeria is rising. By the last quarter of 2019, the Bureau of Statistics put it at 23.1%. Now the government's Economic Stability Committee projects it could hit 35% by December 2020. But Favor is one young lady who doesn't want to be trapped in that unemployment net.
Coming up, African stories. Mauritius expresses fear leaking Japanese vessel on its waters may sink. And later, international news. Scotland schools reopen after 4 months long shutdown.
You are watching ANN.
See you tomorrow, Papa. I am happy and I know I'm free.
Now na time for meeting. Any landlord when no show go pay fine.
Make I go call her.
House number 1. Present.
Papa, they don't disturb me to.
House number 5.
And they're angry that you are not here.
Just put me on the window there so that I can see them and I can hear them. He's not around, so his house is sanctioned. Present. I carry data for head, I carry him for back. Correct data, I know the payment. Say I know they know me, say I know they see your landlord. Talk to me face to face.
Explore without limits. Turn it up on MTN, the reliable data network.
Driver, fire ahead.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. There are growing concerns that the Japanese bulk carrier MV Wakashio could break down and dump its remaining cargo of oil and fuel into the waters around Mauritius. Some experts predict it could happen any day now. The oil spill is near the Blue Bay Marine Park, known for its spectacular corals and a myriad of fish species. Ecologists say this is a blow to the country's ecotourism, on which the country's east coast relies heavily, especially for its fish production. Most of the beaches and islands there are now contaminated. Experts say the oil spill will have a significant impact on the country's tourism industry. The Japanese ship had around 800 tons of fuel on board. Originally, it carried 4,000 tons of fuel and oil. Already more than a quarter has leaked into surrounding waters. Workers and volunteers are now fighting to clean up the oil and sludge before the disaster worsens. French military and technical advisors also arrived after Mauritius appealed for international aid. Although the COVID-19 pandemic is causing economic havoc in South Sudan, just like everywhere else around the globe, one sector in the country is experiencing a boom, the auto sales sector. Respondent Patrick Oyet has that story.
At this car dealership in Juba, business is booming.
Our workload is increasing right now because of the demand of motorcycles and motor vehicles, and we just recently employed another 5 extra people.
Doshi Motors are seeing an increase in sales amid the pandemic. More off-road vehicles and motorcycles are being sold to aid agencies that need to get to people outside of the capital. Restrictions to curb the spread of the virus have now also been lifted, meaning many displaced people are heading back to their own homes and consumer confidence is returning, something showroom manager Isaac says during lockdown people were more cautious about spending their money.
Before it was not much because again the issue of conflict and insecurity, especially in the States, it used to hinder much of the business.
But the coronavirus is causing problems for dealers here. All these cars have been sold during the COVID-19 outbreak, but around the world, the pandemic has hit the car industry hard, and dealerships here are running into difficulty as a result, particularly when it comes to the import and shipment of vehicles. South Sudan's economy is struggling following the global dip in oil prices. Experts say the automotive sector could be a way to help revive it.
South Sudan need to diversify the economy. South Sudan should not depend too much on oil revenues. They need to improve other sectors. Secondly, they need to fight corruption. They need to improve management of the national resources.
The big question is how long this surge will last. At Doshi Motors, they are hoping it continues, but coronavirus cases have passed the 1 million mark in Africa, and if lockdowns return, they say their trade will once again suffer.
China has continued its outreach to other parts of the world in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. It has especially strengthened its assistance to Africa as it collaborates with the African Union in the continent's fight against the pandemic. Correspondent Garen Chala reports from Addis Ababa.
Ethiopian Minister of Health Elia Tadesse has received 2 consecutive deliveries of medical supplies from China this week. First from the First Lady of China, and second from ByteDance, a China-based tech company and owner of the app TikTok. African Union officials say the efforts are commendable and a sign of uninterrupted solidarity with Africa, and the world must unite as one to battle COVID-19.
Africa already decided in fighting COVID-19 as one, but we need the rest of the world to support Africa, especially in strengthening our health systems, in strengthening our capacity to fight COVID-19, and also in supporting us by medical supplies.
Many African nations are procuring medical and testing supplies through the African Union's COVID-19 fund.
Every medical supply that's not produced in Africa, we would like to make sure that we can get it from outside Africa, either donated or through the mechanisms we established, like the anti-COVID-19 fund and the medical supplies platform that we established to facilitate the pool procurement of the medical supplies for African member states.
The African Union is also calling for more economic cooperation across the continent.
Not only a health issue, it is a socio-economic impact that's caused by this COVID-19. That's not why we need the solidarity to be a global solidarity. We need all of us to fight, to come together, all of us globally to fight COVID-19, and for all of us to make sure that even after COVID-19, we will continue in this togetherness and this solidarity to make sure that we will bring the economies to our normal base. We will be fighting other consequences of COVID-19.
For Africa CDC officials, the swift and ample provision of COVID-19 vaccination is another soon-to-be tackled issue. Now that the hope of a working vaccination is becoming a reality by the day, Africa wants to make sure it is not left behind from access to timely vaccination supplies.
When we return, international news. Scotland schools reopen after 4 months long shutdown. And later, sport. Westerhoff defeats Bonfrey in court.
You are watching ANN.
Hey, tell them. They told me you are the best around here.
What can I do for you, sir?
I want my own very, very simple. I don't want any shine. If I see any shine.
Actually, I'd love some sequins on my skirt. And I don't like any frills.
I beg, I want frills on mine. But it must not be too tight.
Tight! That tight now, that is what I want. And the transition.
Oh, you know what? I want a gown.
Me too. I want a gown.
You know what GMS and this for coming?
Hey, did you capture all the information?
Of course not.
Actually.
Fantastic.
I give my customers what they love because everyone has their unique style. So why should they wear the same thing? Just like MTN for me, which gives unique data and recharge offers just the way you like it. Just dial *121# and turn up great offers every day.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Over the past few weeks, residents of Brazil's Rio de Janeiro have ignored one of the most basic COVID-19 safety measures that helps in containing the spread of the coronavirus: protective face mask. With new infection cases mounting, guards have begun imposing fines on those who fail to wear masks, especially in public places. Correspondent Lucretia Fancio has that story.
It is a new age for Rio's municipal guard units. They are patrolling for those ignoring the law that has made wearing masks in public mandatory. Even here, in the open air, under the hot sun, in the city's famous Copacabana beach, they're handing out fines.
It doesn't make any sense. I'm outside. We're not sitting close to each other. You can't catch it out here. The whole thing is very confusing.
Since June, about 1,000 agents have been authorized to fine people and businesses that don't comply with the measure that has proven effective.
We issued around 3,700 fines, 3,000 for not wearing masks and the rest for not keeping proper social distance, but people are not cooperating.
This taxi driver was caught having a coffee without wearing a mask. No excuses are accepted. The fine is the equivalent of $20 per person, and if the infringement is repeated, it can reach $100.
It is very uncomfortable and hot, and I sweat. If I could, I would not wear it, but it's the law, so I have to obey.
Some offenders can be arrested for disobedience or resisting, and businesses can be fined up to $500.
Rio de Janeiro is the state with the second highest number of COVID-19 deaths in Brazil after São Paulo, and many residents are not taking the mask law seriously. But they're not the only ones.
President Jair Bolsonaro, who tested positive for coronavirus and became sick, removed his mask several times in front of supporters after his recovery last month. Brazil's health experts agree that the president is not providing a good example and is hampering the work of these agents that are trying to contain a virus that continues to spread throughout the country.
Scotland schools are gradually reopening for classes. After 5 months of closure, pupils are again seen via classroom walls. The Scottish government wants all schools fully opened by next Tuesday. Awid Jabakil reports.
Morning, everyone. I don't know if you remember, but the last time we met as a group was actually on Wednesday, the 18th of March.
Some students love it, others dread it. But the first day of this new academic year is going to be one many of these young people remember. Scotland has given the green light for schools across the country to reopen, meaning thousands are back at their desks for the first time since March.
I'm so happy. It's been such a long 5 months. I'm really great to be back at school.
It's a bit strange, having been off for like 5 months and then coming into a room full of so many people. It feels a bit surreal, but I'm really glad to be back. Yeah.
Really weird, yeah. It's been so long. It feels like it's been about 12 years since we've been at school, but honestly, it's way better to be back.
At this independent school in Edinburgh, 15 to 18-year-olds were the first ones to return, with younger students set to come back later this week. It's aiming to have all 415 pupils back by Friday.
I had a staff meeting this morning. It was the first thing that I actually said is, the academic attainment is one thing, but it's the mental health and well-being of our children that is absolutely uppermost in our minds. So the first week or two should really be about reintegrating them into a structure that they've been missing for 5 months.
Like Wales and Northern Ireland, Scotland has powers over its own education system, which is why schools here are starting the new term almost a month before England. But what happens here will be watched closely across the rest of the UK.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says getting children back into schools is now the country's top priority. The fear for officials is that the longer they stay closed, the more damage it could be doing, not just for children's education, but for their mental health.
But there are risks linked to reopening. There's no requirements for students to wear face masks here in Scotland, and although social distancing is encouraged, it's not mandatory. Teaching unions say some of their members are worried about catching the virus, and there are wider concerns that unless there's a regular testing system in place, there could be trouble ahead.
It's very easy to criticise what's happening, but we're all in a completely new world almost. All I can do is put my faith and trust into the politicians and the medics to make sure that test and trace system works appropriately.
Almost 5 months after they were forced to stay at home, these young people are back in the most familiar of environments. With the threat of COVID hanging over schools, this is a cautious return. But 90 years after Clifton Hall first welcomed students, they're back in the classrooms once again.
Americans are seeing food insecurity and wasted food crops amid the COVID-19 pandemic. A group of volunteers from Vermont Food Bank is using an ancient practice called gleaning to help tackle both problems. They collect leftover crops and give them to those in need. Correspondent Carida Huber has that story.
A group of volunteers gather at a farm in rural Vermont. They spend much of the day chit-chatting and picking blueberries. They're engaging in an ancient practice called gleaning, which is traditionally defined as collecting leftover crops by those in need.
Gleaning has been around for more than 2,000 years. It has biblical origins. For much of that history, it was largely practiced by religious groups. But in more recent years, it's been adopted by food justice advocates around the world who are pushing for more equitable access to healthy food.
Gleaning is a really cool way of getting fresh food to people who maybe wouldn't be able to afford it.
After picking the food, gleaners then distribute it to people in need at nearby food banks, pantries, and community centers like this. The whole process is organized by the Vermont Food Bank.
We don't ask about their background or anything. It's just anyone who comes and feels that they need it can take the food, and that's feels really satisfying knowing that I've made a difference and everyone is really happy to get the food.
Amid the coronavirus pandemic, gleaning has taken on increased urgency. It's a practical solution for two problems: an abundance of excess crops from farms caused by a drop in demand from restaurants, and increased food insecurity. Record unemployment has pushed demand for food assistance to new highs.
A lot of people are accessing food, charitable food, for the first time because of COVID. And by having these community distributions, we're really trying to remove any stigma and barriers of having someone going into a food shelf and just meet people where they're at and where their families are going already.
The Vermont Food Bank has gleaning projects in more than 70 farms statewide. Salazzo says there are fewer gleaners than usual because of pandemic safety protocols, but volunteers are more motivated to help.
Now more than ever is a really important time for supporting food sovereignty and food justice as a movement, and hopefully it'll continue beyond when the pandemic settles down a little bit.
Up next, sports. Westerhoff defeats Bonfrey in courts over match-fixing allegations. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, Rivers United wants to drag the league management company to both FIFA and CAS over the final MPFL table, the results of which they call fake. Able replaced as runners-up both PPG and WPPG ahead of Rivers United. In a statement signed by General Manager Oke Paluku, they should have placed second. Dutchman Clemens Westerhoff has won a defamation suit brought against him by his former assistant, James Bonfrey. Bonfrey had accused Westerhoff of fixing and selling for $100,000 the Atlanta 1994 round of 16 World Cup match between Nigeria and Italy. Although Westerhoff wanted the courts to jail Bonfrey and impose a heavy fine for defamation, the Arnhem court in the Netherlands has ruled that Bonfrey must run a published apology to Westerhoff in a Nigerian newspaper. That is in the news this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Have a pleasant and safe weekend.